Whether he's an infant, a preschooler, or a full-grown adult from the future, few Marvel characters can match the fully realized power of Franklin Richards. Even the giant cosmic being who eats planets covets his powers and fears him. We have to kick things off with a plot discussion of Fantastic Four First Steps. So here's your spoiler warning. We're gonna get fully into it. An early scene that Marvel Studios released in full in the lead-up to First Steps hitting theaters involves Ben Grimm figuring out that Sue Storm is pregnant when she and Reed Richards arrive late for Sunday dinner. It's a beautiful moment for the family, and their celebration is truly joyous.
You are gonna be the best mom! Oh my God.
And you are gonna be the best dad. Just kidding. You are out of your depth.
It isn't long before that happy moment is ruined by the arrival of the Silver Surfer, who informs the inhabitants of Earth 828 that their planet has been chosen by Galactus for his own dinner. In their position as Earth's heroes, the Fantastic Four hop on their spaceship and find Galactus out in the cosmos, hoping to convince him to spare Earth. Surprisingly, Galactus is open to the idea, but he wants to negotiate a deal. He somehow senses Franklin's abilities while he's still in the womb, so he demands that the FF hand over the child. That's what he requires to spare Earth. The Fantastic Four quite simply can't do that. They refuse, coming back to Earth without having prevented Galactus' arrival.
He asked too high a price.
Well, what does he want?
What did he ask?
He asked for our child.
When Galactus finally gets to Earth, he tellingly doesn't just start chowing down. He's determined to find Franklin first. He's tired of being so hungry all the time and wants to give his powers over to little Franklin. Thanks to some coaxing from Galactus' cosmic powers, Franklin is born on the FF's trip back home after meeting the big guy. Reed immediately starts working on a plan to teleport Earth away from Galactus' reach, but the Silver Surfer ruins that. So Reed tries Plan B, luring Galactus to New York with Franklin as bait, so he can teleport the Devourer to the far reaches of the universe. All of New York's inhabitants go underground to Mole Man's realm as Galactus stomps around the deserted city. The Devourer takes the bait, but he also outfoxes Reed a little bit. He snatches Franklin from the FF's headquarters, temporarily absconding with the newborn. Even with that change of plans, the Fantastic Four all work together to save Franklin and send Galactus as far away as possible. That process takes a whole lot of Sue. Pushing back a rampaging gigantic space demigod with invisible force fields will do that. She seems to be dead until Reed places Franklin on her chest. That alone is enough to bring her back to full health. If Galactus' attempt to foist his hunger off on Franklin feels a little weird, there is at least some comics history to point to it. Not a one-to-one story for reference, but a lot of material to show why Galactus would see Franklin as someone on his level or beyond. Almost nobody in Marvel Comics has as much power as Galactus. He is, after all, the spacefaring planet eater who gives his heralds the power cosmic. His former herald, the Silver Surfer, tops out Marvel.com's rating scale for durability, energy, and speed. But when the Surfer has physically attacked his former master on a handful of occasions, he hasn't been much more than a nuisance to him. Galactus barely flinches. And yet, Franklin Richards always seems to have the Devourer of Worlds outclassed. Galactus only destroys planets. Franklin creates whole new universes. The true extent of Franklin's abilities really come to light during the Onslaught event and its aftermath in 1996. It first appears that a whole bunch of Earth's heroes, the Avengers, the Hulk, and the Fantastic Four, die in the battle with the Title Monster, who came from the merged subconsciousness of Magneto and Professor X. But they're really sent to a pocket universe, the Heroes Reborn universe, which little Franklin created to protect them. In his earliest appearances, Franklin only had vague psionic powers or the ability to see into the future, but those powers have expanded greatly. It's even gotten to the point where he has attempted to hide his powers and he has lost them in some circumstances, but they always come back. In recent years, it's come to light that Franklin is an Omega-level mutant. After the universe is essentially destroyed in the 2015 Secret Wars event, he actively helps reshape the new Marvel U. Galactus and Franklin Richards have only directly interacted a handful of times in Marvel Comics, but every time it's been Franklin who has had the upper hand. In Fantastic Four issue 585 from 2010 by Jonathan Hickman and Steve Epting, Galactus offhandedly mentions to Franklin's dad Reed that he fears Franklin's full power. Part of that fear may stem back to the time Franklin brought Galactus back to life. Big G had essentially been dematerialized into just energy at the end of the miniseries Galactus the Devourer, which led to the arrival of an even worse threat, Abraxas. He didn't want to just eat planets, but destroy the entire multiverse. It was Galactus who prevented Abraxas from being able to roam free, and now that the Devourer was dead, nothing was holding Abraxas back. To stop him, Franklin combines his powers with those of his sister, Valeria, to reform Galactus' energy into a sentient being in 2001's Fantastic Four issue 49 by Carlos Pacheco and Jeff Loeb. Abraxas is finally sent away when Reed uses the Ultimate Nullifier, the weapon that made Galactus leave Earth the first time he appeared. Remaking Galactus seems to burn out Franklin's powers, but we all know that's just temporary. Galactus has had a couple of run-ins with versions of Franklin from the future, and again, Franklin has basically had the Devourer of Worlds eating out of his hand. A version of Franklin who is from an alternate future first appears in 2009's Fantastic Four 574 by Hickman and Neil Edwards. That Franklin was from a timeline that had all but been destroyed by a group of Celestials who hoped to conquer the universe. He was the only survivor of that world, aside from his sister Valeria and grandfather Nathaniel. The Franklin from the future travels back in time in hopes that he can save his reality. So he visits the 616 Marvel Universe, where he restores his younger counterpart's universe-creating powers and gives a young Valeria a pep talk. When the Mad Celestials make their attack, they attack and easily incapacitate Galactus. But the Franklin from the future revives him, essentially making the Herald Maker into his Herald. With the power boost from Franklin, Galactus dispatches the Mad Celestials. Franklin and Galactus bond over eventually getting to see the end of the universe together. It's even heavily implied elsewhere that Franklin will become Galactus in the next universe. The future Franklin finally leaves the 616 because he knows the universe will react badly knowing there are two of him running around.
The question on everybody's mind, will the baby be born with superpowers?
First steps may be informed by 1999 series Earth X by Jim Kruger, Alex Ross, and John Paul Leon, and Doug Braithwaite and its various spin-offs, including Universe X and Paradise X, and not just because it has a Shia LaBeouf Silver Surfer like the movie. It envisions yet another bleak alternate future where a whole bunch of beloved Marvel characters are dead and the world is doomed because there's a giant celestial egg gestating inside of it. To spoil a 25-year-old comic, the Earth is ultimately saved when Galactus arrives and does his devouring thing. He only devours the celestial egg, not the whole planet. It turns out he's been going around devouring the celestial eggs in a whole bunch of planets to prevent imminent destruction from happening elsewhere too. After his work is done, Galactus starts to leave. But Reed Richards calls out to him and asks him to remove his helmet. He does, revealing that he's Franklin Richards. It's later revealed how Franklin took over the big guy's job. It wasn't Galactus' choice. As it turns out, Galactus had been dead for some time. Reed had figured out a way to turn the Devourer of Worlds into a star, eliminating him as a threat. But in doing so, he had put the universe out of balance. The Silver Surfer, the High Evolutionary, and Adam Warlock thus approached Reed and Franklin about the need for a new Galactus. Using the High Evolutionary's equipment, Franklin's mutation was accelerated, making him into the new Devourer and causing him to forget everything. Being called Franklin by his father later reignites some recollection of his past. He finds X-51, the new watcher of this alternate future, and learns all about his and the Fantastic Four's history. X-51 shows him the ultimate fate of an alternate universe Franklin, and he chooses to keep being Galactus. Franklin actually wore the big purple helmet once again in a very recent story. 2025's Fantastic Four issue 32 by Ryan North and Corey Smith is a tie-in to the One World Under Doom event. After Doom uses magic to cause the FF to lose their powers, they try to get them back to re-exposing themselves to the cosmic rays that gave them their powers in the first place. That goes just about as poorly as it can, creating a ripple effect that essentially erases them from existence. Reed and Sue's two kids just go to a different reality though. Valeria Richards awakens in a new world where she looks totally different, is named Mary, and has depowered parents that are acting really weird. It's explained that both Valeria and Franklin came to this alternate world by taking over the bodies of their closest genetic matches. Franklin's closest match was still a fetus, so he's born with near godlike powers. With no Fantastic Four or other heroes to save the world, Reed and Sue abuse Franklin's powers from the very start, leading him to become totally disconnected from humanity. Baby Franklin Franklin destroys that reality's Galactus, then chooses to take on his form because it's the biggest thing he's ever seen. Franklin then becomes a global dictator, altering the mind of anyone who gets out of line. Valeria is only able to undo all the harm he's done by essentially destroying that reality and resetting the timeline to before the cosmic rays plan even started. Like we said, it took a while for Franklin's universe-shaping powers to fully emerge in the comics. He was born in Fantastic Four Annual Issue 6 from 1968, but he wasn't at the full extent of his abilities until nearly 30 years later. That's at least partially because, as is often the case in comics, different creators took all that time to really devise and solidify what Franklin's deal actually was. Comics Franklin has been kidnapped quite often, like that one time Dr. Doom sent him and Valeria to literal hell. But it's more often than not been simply as a means to get leverage over his parents, not necessarily to harness his power, as Galactus wants to do in the movie. That said, there were a couple early examples of characters seeing Franklin's vague potential. In Fantastic Four, issue 141 from 1973 by Jerry Conway and John Buscema, the villain Annihilus snags Franklin and attempts to use him as a sort of human battery to transfer Franklin's powers to himself. Reed gets a glimpse of his son thinking of galaxies as a child's toy and frees him from Annihilus's device. Reed becomes so fearful of what he's seen in Franklin, he uses a device that temporarily makes his own son comatose, and everyone gets mad at him. Franklin's grandfather, Nathaniel Richards, also thought Franklin could be a danger to the world, so he abducted young Franklin and took him to the future where he trained him. The aged-up Franklin returned to the present and led the Fantastic Force for a while, until that all got undone and Franklin was made a child again. In the movie, it isn't just Galactus who seeks to use Franklin's power for his benefit. The mid-credit scene, which takes place 4 years later, reveals that Dr. Doom is fully aware of the boy's power. He shows up in the Baxter building and hovers over young Franklin in a brief moment where Sue has her back turned. What's not totally clear is just what Doom specifically has in mind for Franklin. Does he want to siphon off his energy to empower their own bodies, like Annihilus at one time? Does he want to manipulate him into creating new universes they can control? Is he excited about his apparent healing powers? Whatever it is, it seems sure to play into the events of Avengers Doomsday, which comes out in December 2026. Not only is Doom obviously the villain of the film, but the Fantastic Four will be in it too, considering that Secret Wars will follow in 2027, and that Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige has teased big changes after that. We've got some guesses about how Battleworld will come to be, and the MCU will be reshaped. Franklin's at the heart of them.